We're going to return to the beginning and start with some questions about climate that we touched on before, but now we'll hear six new perspectives. So let's see. Mr. Carlone, I'll put you on the spot since you're holding the mic. Sure. What can the City Council do to encourage emissions reductions by both the residents and the businesses of Cambridge? And what initiatives would you take as City Councilor to help them do that?
Well, this is something true and dear to my heart. My colleague Nadeem has talked about education, and other people in the room have emphasized the need for education. There's no question, starting young, but even for businesses now. Good energy, good green policies help everybody. It's short-term versus long-term thinking. In the short term, people make the argument that you can't have change, you can't improve it. I'm a long-term guy. Master planning is a long-term thing. You look at the long-term goals and you shoot for that. As far as incentives go, people have tax incentives for various things that benefit the public sector. What could be more beneficial than a much healthier environment? Long-term should be the economic basis for many decisions and not just short-term budgets. It has to be the big picture.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask Lesley Phillips. As a city councilor, how will you engage with underserved communities to make sure they are active participants in the conversation on climate change, including the threats they face and the opportunities in the green economy?
The reality in dealing with the underserved communities is those are communities, even in the wealthy city of Cambridge, who are living paycheck to paycheck if they have a paycheck, or living month to month if they have a month. You have to meet them where they are. We have to deal with their day-to-day and month-to-month needs before we can really engage them to thinking about what the climate crisis 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the pike is. When you are worrying about the food on next week's table, it's really hard to pay attention to what the water level may be in 2035. So we need to educate, we need to speak to those who are living on the brink, even in Cambridge, so that they can also be active participants in helping the entire city deal better with the environmental challenges to come.
Thank you very much.
Comment on that? Is that appropriate?
Please, yes. As I say, we want to make sure that everyone gets to a chance to speak their mind, so if
Sure.
any of you want to jump in.
I'll use my 1 minute in this round on this, I guess. This is a topic near and dear to my heart. I was president of the Social Justice Cooperative at MIT and have studied poverty for some time. One of my pledges as a city councilor is to take 1/3 of my after-tax city councilor salary and put it towards community organizing in the community. We need to actually pay people who are already leaders in the community, pay people who would like to be leaders in the community, to inform neighborhoods about the opportunities that exist and to bring back needs from those neighborhoods to the city council. In this case, there are a lot of green jobs, there are a lot of opportunities, there's a lot of subsidies, there's a lot we can do while helping people pick themselves up by their bootstraps, or while we're helping people manage 3 jobs while getting a great education for their kids, to also have on their minds green energy issues or citywide issues that they might simply care about. I don't think we can exclude people from the dialogue simply because they're very busy or because they have other priorities. I think we must do this holistically, and I think when it comes to poverty, when it comes to basic democratic representation, we must work harder to have more community organizing, even if it's at the cost of my salary or of any city councilor's salary.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to turn to Mr. Seidel and ask him, what additional measures should the city take in the next 2 years to increase our resiliency and prepare for climate-driven emergencies?
Thank you. Somehow I feel as though these tough questions end up landing on me, which may mean that there's a lot of work that's ongoing in the question of resiliency right now. And the first thing that I want to do is see the results of that work. I know that there's a committee working on that. Where they are exactly in the process, but I know they're going to generate a whole series of recommendations, and we need to look at those. to understand what the thinking is so far. My experience in Cambridge in general is that there are many, many bright minds that produce a lot of good work, and a lot of times, even when I was on the council, you had a great idea and then you scattered around, and lo and behold, there was a group or there was somebody who had already done a lot of work on that. So I don't actually want to get out in front of that work yet. I need to see that work first before I start recommending additional things. The only thing I would say is that along the lines of climate change, et cetera, we know that the impacts of higher variability within weather and the climate are going to produce outcomes like Sandy in New York. We have every reason to expect that here in the Boston region as well, and we need to take that very, very seriously. That is part of the discussion about Kendall Square. It needs to be part of the discussion about Central Square, and it goes back to a point that I was trying to make. Am I out of time?
You're running over, you make your point.
It goes back to the point I was trying to make about the T, which is that we can have much more detailed conversations with the MBTA about a whole range of issues. This would be included in those issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question will be for Elie Yarden, and it has to do with the following concept that the Savory Institute has proposed ways that large grazing animals can help mix the surface, the soil, so that more carbon is sequestered in the dirt, basically. Now, I know there are large herds of bison in Cambridge that could address that, but I guess I would like you to take that topic and think about it a little bit and talk to us about what Cambridge might do in the direction of sequestering carbon in natural ways.
Study the analysis and learn from it. One of the big problems is that ecological thinking, which is extremely influential in business and management, and I assure you that the corporations have many trained ecologists to defend their interests. There's been an enormous increase in ecological knowledge. The problem here is one of ecological wisdom. And so, if it is true that it is not necessary to fire grasslands, and a better technology is to pasture sheep and cows, well, what are you going to do with all those cows? How are they going to get from New Zealand to wherever they're going? To what extent are you encouraging greater beef eating? And what is the effect of that on the total ecology? So it's very curious to see interests dominating. One of the big changes that has to take place is that we have to work cooperatively and not competitively. The competitive mentality is one of the things that leads to catastrophic climate change. It's one of the human behaviors that is destroying the planet.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think that we're, Gary, so the question I was going to put to you had, well, we've all talked about climate. Would you like to you've seen the questions, do you want to take a minute and talk about climate, or would you like to talk about some of the open space issues?
If I've got it right, the question 4 is the one you haven't touched in part A.
If you would like to take that, why don't you run with it?
See, I got lucky. I got to know what my question would be. Okay, the question would be, what do you think our single city can do to impact regional, national, even international levels of decision making? Well, I'm going to mimic what was said in the first panel, and that is, we've got the brains and we've got the knowledge to export. We've got everything going for us in that direction. But I also want to expand on a previous answer, the previous answer. If you'd had a counselor named Gary Mello 10 years ago, you wouldn't have invested in a heat pump system in a building that I knew, having 2 engineering degrees, I know is just a plain silly idea. The council last week voted for $500,000 to repair this system. It's not even 10 years in service. That's $50,000 a year wasted down the drain. I studied geothermal 40 years ago. I studied photovoltaics. I studied tidal energy. I studied a large number of alternate energy sources many years ago. I know that there's not a lot of new stuff coming down the pike. Some of the things we're bringing up as new technologies are so old that Thomas Edison couldn't have invented them. Anyway, you need some engineering talent on the city council, and Mr. Mercer and I can certainly top the ticket with that item.
Well, we have to unfortunately have to end the panel there. It was very interesting. I know that Ms. Phillips wanted to speak about, please ask her questions about wetland restoration and the alewife, okay? I want to thank our panel. It's very interesting. And if anyone has questions, please come up. We have a 10-minute break. Please come and
I just wanted to make a brief follow-up comment to one of these statements in the last go around.
Okay, if you can do it, yeah.
Okay, I've really been wanting to address this for a number of forums, and tonight's the last one. Cambridge pays its city councilors very handsomely. Thankfully, more and more city council candidates are realizing serving on the council is a full-time job. A couple of years at these forums, there were many councilors who said, oh, I'll keep my 40-hour-a-week job with the state. I'll just be a half-time councilor for $90,000 a year. Thank you all. Appreciate that money. We pay them handsomely. I will be a full-time counselor, devoting myself to both setting wise policy and serving my constituents with good constituent services. However, it's all well and good for somebody who might be of independent means to say, I'll turn back a third of my salary. Not everyone can do that. But what we have to do is recognize that currently on the city council, we have 3 councilors who are earning 2 salaries each. The mayor gets paid for 2 jobs. 2 of our councilors are legislators. One of those is running for re-election. We need to have the city decide that councilors will only have 1 job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll give a nice round of applause to our panel. And
All right, I've got to address the part that was pointed at me for 10 seconds. I'm not of independent means. I'm returning a third of my salary to the community out of principle. I guarantee you I have less in the bank than most of the people in the room, okay, as a young person in
let's take
Cambridge.
this offline. This is thank you very much. So if,
I hear you, but I want people to understand where this comes from.
again, thanks to our panel, and the next round of candidates can probably start to come to the front, and if you